Greatest action adventure hero of all time in any sort of pop culture is back, but not in movie format this time. And even though we love Indiana Jones and his films, I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a masterpiece and it's one of my favorite films of all time. He's back in his own brand new video game called Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Developed by Machinegames, who's most notably known for the Wolfenstein games, and published by Bethesda Softwares, coming out on the Xbox and, of course, PC. A chance to play it on Xbox early, and as someone who enjoys this original Indiana Jones game, also just loves the film franchise, this has been a game I've been very interested in, trying to get excited about, but also just nervous on how you're going to do an Indiana Jones game. Even though Machinegames was making it, and they've made some incredible games so far, and them making this seemed like the perfect studio to develop it, still had a lot of trepidation going into this. And after playing it, I loved it, and I cannot wait to play it again. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new game review. Today we're going to be discussing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, for people who don't know, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle features an original narrative that draws inspiration, of course, from the film series, and this story is set in 1937, placing it in between the events of the first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the third film, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Like both films, the game takes place before the events of World War II, where the game picks up after Jones has left his fiancée, Marion Ravenwood, following the theft of an artifact from Marshall College by an imposing man known as the Locust, played by Tony Todd. Rest in peace. It was so great to see you in here. I forgot you were in this game. But Jones heads to the Vatican to investigate. He discovers that the sites of spiritual significance has been built throughout history, realizing that the locations form a perfectly aligned circle around the globe. And that's about all you need to know. There's Nazis, there's fascists, there's evil, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. It's an Indiana Jones adventure, and for the most part, I loved my experience with this, which is something that I wasn't anticipating to say. And initially, when this was announced, I was out of my mind excited, but then once they started showing gameplay and some trailers, I kind of lost a little bit of interest in this game. And I think part of it is the reason that I was expecting this to be a little bit more of a third-person action adventure, and it ended up just being first-person, which after playing it, I completely see why and understand why they were going for that route. I also was just kind of curious to see how they were going to be able to pull this off. Now, Troy Baker is voicing Indiana Jones in here. Of course, they are using Harrison Ford's likeness. And for the most part, Troy Baker does a phenomenal job as Harrison Ford, or specifically Indiana Jones. So I am very excited to talk about this. I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, so please leave your thoughts down there. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here. I love talking about movies, TV, and games on a daily basis. Video games come here and often. That's like my bread and butter. I love playing those. I usually just cover movies and TV on here, but occasionally I get to talk about a video game. And this is one of those times, so if you do enjoy video game talks, let me know because I would love to do more of these. That said, let's dive into the pros. And number one thing I want to state off the fact of this, and this is the one reason that I was really wanting to jump into this, that is the story. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, for me, is a fantastic Indiana Jones adventure. Now, without getting into spoilers, because this is a non-spoiler review, since this is an early review, I don't want to sit here and tell you that, oh, it's going to please all Indiana Jones fans, because I don't think it is. But if you're someone who likes Indiana Jones, at least the trilogy itself, I think you're going to find yourself very happy with a lot of the choices that they make in here. I think if you were disappointed in Dial of Destiny, this will probably be exciting to you. If you weren't a fan of Crystal Skull, this will be exciting to you. For me, I think when I talk to a lot of Indiana Jones fans, it can kind of sway one way or the other. I'm one of the people that love a lot of his different adventures, even some of the bad ones, mostly because, and I'll say this, I don't mind when it goes into like the crazy ass territory that they can go, specifically with Crystal Skull and the aliens. And I think the Great Circle touches right on the cuff of going a little overboard with the ideas and maybe some of the supernatural stuff it deals with, while at the same time pulling back and being just kind of in the same consistency of the original trilogy. For me, every choice they made in terms of all those and this mystery and what adventure he's going on, I thought worked. There comes one part probably towards the mid-half to the end of the game that I just smiled with delight. Found myself just being completely entranced with this adventure. In fact, what I ended up doing was on my first playthrough, I basically just played through it. The first level I kind of played around with a lot because there's a lot to do in this game, which we'll talk about in a second. And then I kind of decided, I want to get the full invest of this story. I want to kind of go through this. I want to get the whole story, and then I'll kind of go back and do what I need to do. So I ended up doing that after the first level. I'll say I rushed through the rest of the game just to feel what the story was, because sometimes when I do play a game that has so many open, wide choices, I just want to experience the story first and then go back and get all those little different pieces and maybe other pieces of the story that I missed. And I found that to actually be, and it's going to be different for everybody, but I found that to be perfect for me, because as someone who just wants to experience the Indiana Jones story, I was able to get that. And I think really much this is such a nice chapter in Indy's life, specifically because it always rubbed me a little bit of the wrong way when Marion left. I didn't understand why, I didn't understand where it was going, and in this adventure, it really does piece that nice little puzzle together of where Indy was during that time. What happened? It really explains some things psychologically going on with him and things that he maybe wasn't ready for. And I think this adventure is something that he actually genuinely needed. I also think it adds a little bit more of an aspect of being in his father's shadow, which is, of course, stuff that, of course, he experiences within the Last Crusade. Being this in-between chapter, it's so perfect. And for me, it just delighted me to no end to see how they were able to accomplish that. And there's a lot I definitely want to talk about when it comes down to spoilers. So if you are looking forward to a spoiler review, let me know. If enough people ask for it, I will absolutely do one. But Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is definitely going to have a lot of fun surprises for people that I'm excited enough to talk about with fans once they get to play the entire game. Alongside this, I think the biggest surprise for me on this game, and a lot of this might be just because I wasn't following a lot of the gameplay or, again, a lot of the development cycle of this, but is how open this game is. I expected a more linear game, and for some reason I was like utterly blown away by the way that they all set everything up. Now, when the game starts, it has a phenomenal tutorial level that just made me giddy from ear to ear, and I think fans of the series will absolutely love it. But once it actually jumps in and dives into the story of what's going on in Indy's life, and you get to the first actual true level, which is the Vatican, and it just kind of opens it up. It's this, I don't want to say open world, but it's this massive level with tons of highs, tons of lows, sewers, crevices to crawl through, buildings to scale, fascists everywhere, and you as Indiana Jones are dressed as a priest walking around the Vatican trying to figure something out. And you end up talking to people, you end up snatching money, stealing from fascists, stealing from Nazis, and it's massive. As I went to the main location, because you have this map and you're following in it, and it says, go here, I ended up finding like 3 other things to do. Every mission in the Vatican, it opened up more things for me to do. And that was not something I was expecting at all from this game. I was expecting a linear adventure, one that I would enjoy and have fun with, but this was fantastic. This level design, I think, is impeccable. Specifically in the Vatican itself, I think it almost peaks there because of how good it is, but the rest is pretty solid, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I was really, really impressed with this. And specifically, it was not something I was expecting, and I think the best way to talk about how the gameplay is for Indiana Jones is, and I talked to my friend about this, I think it is a first-person Hitman game. Without the killing. Well, Indy can kill people if you choose to. If you grab your gun and you shoot people, you're going to kill someone. But in a way, it really reminded me of Hitman, because sometimes you get disguises and you have to put them on. You have to sneak past people or knock them out and all these different things. And it really did feel like the Hitman for Indiana Jones. Like, that's kind of the gameplay with a little bit of a mix of like Dishonored, and even kind of gave me some vibes of like the original Half-Life in terms of like some of the puzzles you have to figure out. I really brought me back to like a classical action adventure first person game that I just don't think we get ever now often. Yeah, there's action in here, but a majority of the game is adventure. Walk here, figure out this puzzle, do this, do that. Yes, along the way, you might punch a fascist or a Nazi or a couple of them, and have fun doing it. Or maybe you might have to whip out your whip and hit them, or maybe shoot them with the revolver. Or maybe you can choose to sneak around. It's up to you. All of these things and more equivalent to a fun gameplay loop that I consistently had. And now if I am to play devil's advocate, I can see some people getting a little bit of like bored with that loop just because I don't think games are made this way, but this feels like an old school classic game that I just, again, don't think we get enough of nowadays. And it was a little bit shocking to see, but it made me happy. It made me happy to see what Machine Games was going into. And I think in the end of the day, what they did set out to do and what they said from the beginning is that they wanted to make you feel like you were Indiana Jones on his next grand adventure. And that's exactly what the fuck they did. They make you feel like you are in Indiana Jones's shoes. In fact, you can even look down and see his shoes and his whole body. That's always, I love when games do that, like, genuinely, when you could see the whole torso. Like, back in the day, they used not to be able to, but if they did it back in the day, it made me happy, and I was happy to see it. When I looked down, I said, oh, okay, cool, they passed the test. Make you feel like Indiana Jones. Like, for every aspect of it, you feel like Indy. And the gameplay loop for me worked. I never felt like it was buggy. At the hand-to-hand combat, I thought it was awesome. There's a lot of accessibility settings, too, to kind of help you get down with the lowdown of it, and then you can make it as difficult or as easy as you would like it to. Always so fun. Like, I always looked forward to that next experience of when I had to punch someone, or maybe even that next puzzle that would open up the next mystery that I was on as Indiana Jones. On the gameplay, the only grievance I do have on it is, even though it is first person and sometimes third person, like sometimes it like pans out when you're climbing up your whip and stuff, those are nice aspects. I actually kind of wish they would have gone the Deus Ex route. If you've ever played that game had a really perfect mix of first and third person, and I think Indiana Jones maybe would have catered to more of that style in a way, where if you're trying to sneak around and like peek around a corner, you could do the third person to kind of look at that from that direction. I know that's probably not what Machine Games was going for, but I personally would have liked something more in that route. Getting into that first person nature, one of the things that really shocked me as well was the cutscenes, the way that they're just so truly put into here. I mean, there's certain times where you really do everything as Indiana Jones, whether you're moving something from one platform to the next or turning a key. You're doing all these little details, and sometimes these take you directly into a cutscene, and for the most part, it is a smooth transition where it never feels or takes you out of the picture. Now, maybe here and there, it's like, okay, you could have just made this one giant cutscene. It's like, okay, we went from one cutscene to gameplay, and then boom, right back into the cutscene. Maybe it would have been a little bit more smooth if you just did one concurrent cutscene, but for me, it made me happy, and that would just be a nitpick of what I was just talking about. It comes down to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I love the gameplay. I had fun with it. It made me feel like Indiana Jones. I overall love the story for here. There's a lot of fun adventures, and I really hope that Machine Games, like my big takeaway is that I hope that we get more Indiana Jones games from them, because I think they are the perfect developer to do so, and I think if this is the way that Indiana Jones is going to live on in pop culture, I'm okay with it. So I would prefer a movie, but I don't think we're going to get another Indiana Jones movie for a very long time, and specifically once we have a new actor in the role, which is kind of blasphemy to a lot of people. Kind of just a couple other tidbits of things that I really liked was, of course, just Easter eggs, clues, a lot of the artifacts you can find along the way as Indy. All the other big level set designs. There's one in Egypt that just like took my breath away. There's this giant one in the Himalayas that it's an amazing sequence as well. As well as the performances, I thought every single person in here did a great job. It was great seeing Tony Todd in here. Seriously, rest in peace. I loved his performance in here. I really like Troy Baker too. I think he does a phenomenal job as the voice of Indiana Jones. Mispronounces, but Alessandro Mastrandi, who plays Gina in here, I thought was a great standout. As well as Marios Gavrilis, who plays Emmerich Voss. I think Voss is just like one of those peak A1 like Indiana Jones villains that, again, we would have seen in that original trilogy, and he just plays a perfect like parallel to what Indy wants. As well as the music is perfect, and so many other choices, specifically even like the upgrading nature. I really liked all the upgrading. It made you want to search out and explore and do other things, which is something that adds to the gameplay loop. Obviously, with games, you want to know, what's the problem? Is this worth my $60, $70? Is this worth downloading on Game Pass? Because that's how it is. It is not on PlayStation right now, but I do plan on buying it on PlayStation again once it does come out, because I do want to own that physical media copy on my PlayStation. But playing it on my Xbox, there's a lot of pros to it. I'm not going to say that this is the reason to rush out and buy an Xbox, though. It's not. I don't think any game is the reason to go run out and buy one console. Well, unless you're crazy like me, I bought an Xbox to play Gears of War. Genuinely, like, this is one of those that if you have Game Pass and you're a fan of Indiana Jones, you should download it. If you have Game Pass and you're just looking for another fun action adventure that's a little bit different than what other games are coming out, you should download this. And vice versa, if you have PC and you have Game Pass or can buy the game, then you should just download it. I think also if you're just looking for something a little bit different and you do have an Xbox, you should buy it. Like, I would heavily recommend, like, if you already own these ways to play the game, then get it. If you're waiting until it comes out on PlayStation, then pre-order it ahead of time. Really enough, I think there's only a couple of issues that I like kind of stem from this from making me go to a perfect score. I think in terms of a story, I am completely locked into there, and I would give the story overall as a 10 out of 10. I just think it is a near perfect Indiana Jones adventure. In terms of the gameplay, though, and as much fun as I had on it, I did find myself hitting a couple bugs that really hindered some of the nuances of me being locked into the adventure, and sometimes it would take me out of it. Now, they're not tragically bad. I never had to restart a checkpoint or anything like that, but sometimes, like, I'll vault over something and get stuck in a wall. Or sometimes, like, I'll have to use a piece to get something, and this element hasn't loaded in. And it kind of just takes you out of the experience for a little bit. There's just stuttering and a little bit of bugs, but for the most part, the frame rate was a pretty consistent 58 to 60 frames per second when I checked my monitor. And for me, that made me happy. Obviously, I'm not like Digital Foundry or anything. I'm not going to be able to sit here and detail you all the technical aspects or anything like that. This is just what I experienced playing the game. In terms of all the little details, I was happy with this. I think people might be surprised by how puzzle heavy this is, and I think for puzzle enthusiasts, you're going to be pretty excited. Now, again, the puzzles are pretty accessible. You can change to whatever you want those settings on, but some of them are pretty difficult, and some of them are pretty easy. But for the most part, like, they do sometimes take some thinking, and I was kind of surprised by how in-depth some of them were. They make you feel like Indiana Jones, and that was like the biggest thing I could take away from this. This is like a perfect start for a new Indiana Jones gaming trilogy, and I really hope we get more of this from Machine Games. I was very impressed with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Maybe I'm in the minority. I didn't get to talk to anyone else that has played the game yet, so I have no idea how people are feeling on this. Again, I might be in the minority. That sometimes happens with video games, but as someone who wasn't that excited for this, I wanted to be, but I was very, very hesitant. I'm so happy to say that I came away from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle with a great big smile on my face going, I can't wait to go back and play this again, which is what I ended up doing. I ended up starting it right back over and going through the story, but also taking my time a little bit more this time and having fun kind of pinpointing different things. There is so much to do and so much to find that it is a very addicting gameplay loop, at least for me as someone who loves Indiana Jones and wants to keep playing as him. But I felt immersed in his new adventure, and with all that said, I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts, and of course, until next time, stay classy.